Hello everybody, this is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. The first time I met my mentor, Dalton Leong, who was the Asian man I've spoke a few times about, but I'm going to go into more detail today about what I learned from Dalton. And I met him in St. Louis, Missouri at a little pool room called Afton Billiards. It was or OK Corral. It was in Afton, the suburb of St. Louis, and the owner was named Jim, and he was kind of a jolly old guy, kind of looked like Santa Claus, and he loved action. So when somebody came in his place, which it was just a small brick building with about probably 10 pool tables, but they had really good gold crown Brunswicks, and I just liked the atmosphere. I like kind of small pool rooms, and especially if the owner's real cool, and Jim was really cool. So I was in there one night, and this Asian guy came in with this tall, thin white guy. Looked kind of like a country bumpkin, but because I noticed right away it was kind of an odd couple, if you will. But they were wanting pool action. So Jim, got me over there and said that I would gamble with him. So the Asian guy is the one that wanted to play, and I think he called himself Dean, was his road name at that time. So I played Dean / Dalton, and I could tell he played really well, but at the time he was having trouble with his eyes, so he wasn't playing the top of his game. So we played for probably 3 or 4 hours, ended up breaking even. But I could tell there was something special about this guy. So afterwards, we got to talking, and he divulged that he was a road player, and he'd been down in Houston playing with those guys. Houston had a lot of really good players hanging around, like Swanee and Earl Strickland and James Christopher, and Rusty Brandemeyer was down there, and I think Sammy Jones hung in Houston and Dallas. So there was a lot of action in Texas at that time. So some of the best players were down there. There's a lot of money, a lot of oil money. So Dalton had been down there, but he was, like I said, having trouble with his eyes. So he was on the road trying to get pumped up. And so we exchanged numbers and decided that we'd team up and go on the road together. So we went up to Minnesota was the first place we went. And there was a lot of action up there. A lot of those small towns like Rochester, Minnesota. We played a guy named Toby Dick. And there were several action guys around there. As a matter of fact, that's the first time I met some Filipino players that had a real unorthodox stroke. And they told me about there were some players back in the Philippines that played better than the American players, which I didn't quite believe at the time, but later I found out they were talking about Efren Reyes and Jose Perica and Francisco Bustamante, and they were right. They played, I don't know about better. Buddy Hall beat Efren the first time they gambled in Houston, and I think, between Buddy Hall, Nick Varner, and Earl Strickland, and Jimmy Rimpey and Sigel, all those players were definitely formidable opponents, of course. That proved to be true, and I came on the scene a little bit later, but they were, they proved to be right. So that was in the pool room. We played Toby Dick, but we ended up in Minneapolis, and we were winning a lot of money. At the time we were in Minneapolis, we were probably 12 to 15,000 ahead just by playing all the small towns around Minneapolis. We always went to the big cities last, or we went to the big cities to the main pool room if they didn't know us, and we'd lay down a lemon. That means we'd lose on purpose to a few people, and then go around to the outskirts and hunt them down individually. So one of those two things. But in this case, we went to Gentleman Jim's, which was a 24-hour pool room on Lake Street in Minneapolis. And they had a lot of action, One guy in particular that Dalton ended up playing was Teddy Williams, and he was kind of a notorious tough guy. We called him a tush hog. And Dalton played him one night at Gentleman Jim's, and they had all the money on the light. It was $3,800 is what they were playing for, $3,800 apiece. So Dalton, I was so happy for him. He finally played good and ended up winning that set. They were playing a race to 15 for the money. And right as he shot the 9-ball, this Teddy Williams jumped off the bar stool, ran over, and grabbed all the money off the light. And he said, "You're not leaving town with my money." He said, "Last time I played some road players, they beat me and said they'd play again and left town." So he says, "I'm keeping this money. We're going to play tomorrow for $5,000. So there was nothing we could do. I mean, Dalton tried his sleight of mouth on the guy, didn't work. Nothing worked. They said this guy had to run like 5 miles just to get to sleep at night and could snap a butt of a cue in 2. He had done that. So that's how strong this guy was. We really didn't want to mess with him. So what we found out the next day, because he didn't show up, is that on his way home, he tried to rob a drugstore and got caught. And I guess they went to his house or something and arrested him and took all the money, which was our money. So, Dalton was pretty bummed out about that. He finally booked a nice winner, and we didn't get paid. So we hung around there for a little while, and there again, that's the first place that I got robbed at gunpoint, because Dalton had a Volkswagen van that we were traveling around with. He basically had all his earthly possessions in there. So we pulled up to a side street right a block away from Gentleman Jim's. We were hiding our plates. He didn't want them to see his plates. I think he had Tennessee plates at the time, because he played a lot in Tennessee. But needless to say, he went into the pool room, and I stayed out there for a little while. And as I got out of the van, fortunately he had the keys, but I got out of the van, locked it, and as I went up to the corner to go around the corner, 2 guys came around the corner right at that time. I'm pretty sure they were sent after me, and they rushed me, put a gun to my neck, put me up against the van, and wanted all my money. Well, I had just a little bit of money in my front pocket, and I had 5 $100 bills in my back left pocket, and my jeans were kind of baggy. So they kind of searched me. They found the money in the front pocket, which was just a couple hundred, and they took my cue. I had my cue in my hand, and that cue was made for me by Bob Rundy, who was with Sean Hughes, and it was a Sneaky Pete, a 6-pointed Sneaky Pete that played like unbelievably good. And Dalton had me running 5 racks in a row, practicing every day, and I am really good at taking break ball in hand and betting that I can run out because of all that training with Dalton, because he said that if I was going to be a great player, I needed to be able to run 5 racks in a row. And so I did it. Later he said that he was just kidding, that he didn't think I could actually do it, but wanted to push me, which that was part of what his role was in my life. It seems like in my life, the right people at the right time, in the right situation, have always shown up. Even to this day, I've drawn in. I'm working with some amazing people right now that are super sharp. They love pool, and they want to help really make it big. So we've got a ongoing plan to do that. We have 3 phases to it, and this is basically the first phase is the book that I'm writing, and then we've got some really cool stuff that we're working on. I've got some practice devices that are really good at helping you improve your stroke, your stance, your body position, your alignment, and they're being developed and packaged right now. I've got the prototypes, and I'm excited about getting those out. It'll probably be in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But so After I got robbed, I ran into the gentleman gyms, and I said I'd been robbed, and they said I was like a light color of green because it did scare me. You know, if you've never had a gun to your throat, it will cause you some trauma, let's just say. So anyway, some people ran out and tried to find the ones that robbed me. Of course, they were already gone. So that kind of put a damper in our Minnesota trip, and so we decided to leave. So we're taking that Volkswagen van, and we're going to go down to Texas. So we're going down I-35, I believe it was, and we smell smoke in the van, and we look back, and you can see that the van is smoking. I think it had the engine in the back. Anyway, it caught on fire. So Dalton pulled over the van, and I grabbed all the stuff I had. I didn't have that much, but he did have all his worldly possessions in that van, so we got everything we could out, but we didn't have much time. So a lot of his sentimental things were left in that van. You know, he wrote poetry and kept a diary and just had a lot of sentimental stuff that he wasn't able to get. And I still remember we flagged somebody down, and they picked us up because they could see the van was on fire. And as we were driving away from it, we got about 100 yards away, and I remember looking around, and the van was totally ablaze, and Dalton lost everything. And I looked back, and I saw Dalton, and I saw the expression on his face. And, you know, he never really showed much emotion, but I saw some tears just swell up in his eyes, and he just shook his head and wiped the tears off, and really never mentioned it again. I mean, he just accepted it, and that's what Dalton was so strong. I mean, he was so wise, and he taught me so many things. Like we had discussions about money, and he told me, CJ, money must always be a result and never an incentive. The result of finding the perfection in things and doing jobs as well as you can. And, you know, that stuck with me. And then we were talking when we were in Minneapolis one day, and I asked him, you know, we'd won a lot of money. What would he recommend I do with that money? Should I invest in stocks or bonds, or, you know? And he looked at me, he said, the best investment you can make is investing in yourself and making yourself the greatest asset so that you can make the compensation that you want, again, as a result, not an incentive. So those words stuck with me, and that's, every time I looked at a situation, I thought about getting the result that I wanted before thinking about the compensation. So the money wasn't an incentive. And I did invest in myself, and I've spent $150,000 in martial arts lessons, and probably another $100,000 in getting a master's degree in NLP and Silva mind control, and studying Tad James and Richard Bandler, John Grinder, Jan Marsalak. They were all specialists in neuro-linguistic programming, the study of how words are used to program the mind. And that has been an incredible tool in my life, because there's a lot of programming going on in this world, and we're kind of born into programming that I've come to find out isn't true. And so you can make models of things, but the models don't have to be true. So that's what we're dealing with now. And I'm so glad to have my PhD, my pool hall degree. And Dalton was certainly one of my professors, and the game was our teacher. If you want to learn more about my systems, fundamentals, and techniques I use to reach the highest level of pocket billiards, join me at cjwiley.com. And we are revamping that website, so the new one will be up within probably 30 days, maybe 45 days. So I've got a lot of new stuff that's getting ready to happen, and I appreciate you supporting me, and and your interest in pocket billiards, because my goal is to make it as good as it can possibly be and use my resources and everything I can do, because my incentive is to do the best for the game. And the result is, hopefully, that a lot more people will get into pool and enjoy the game. And it's a great learning tool for kids. I mean, it teaches you a lot of different assets that you're going to use in life, like negotiation skills and calculating percentages, statistics, just how to interact with people and how to tell if you're getting hustled. That's a big one. And I'm going to give you some more keys here in the next few videos of the best ways not to hustle people, but to know if you're getting hustled. Till next time, this is CJ. I'll talk with you soon.